Okay, I know probably nobody's here, but I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to talk about self-talk. Other people think if you see me that I might be anxious. You might be just noticing when you fall into the what if thinkings. Is the first step towards gaining control over your negative thoughts. And that's what I say about people with post-traumatic. It's the self-talk, the self-thoughts, and if you're going to go into a panic mode or not. You can talk yourself out of it. So you don't want to have, I've sort of, within the last year, I haven't had any more attacks. I've had thoughts, but not attacks where my dog has actually have to lead me away from the store. But a self-talk is the change that occurs when you begin to counter and replace the negative thoughts, like a negative thought, what if statements, with the positive self-supportive statements that reinforce your ability to cope. Like, for example, you might say, so what? These are just thoughts. I want to consider some basic facts about self-talk. Following these moves that I do, like I was saying, with a self-talk, it's changing and controlling the way that you think. That will help you with the self-talk and the way you've, because I said that I have like a million things going through my mind. And when I have all those things going through my mind, I have to control what I think so that I can get on with my everyday life. Because if I have the negative thoughts, then it'll overpower, and then I get what is called, where a lot of people get the PTSD, or you get agitated, aggravation, or just hostile. It depends on what you're thinking. Some self-talk is usually so automatic and subtle that you don't even notice it or what effect it has on you, on your moods and feelings. You react without noticing what you're told to yourself or others before you react. Often it's only when you relax, take a deep breath, and step back that you really examine what you're feeling yourself and your connection between the self-talk and your feelings altogether. It's important that you learn to slow down and take note of your negative feelings. Okay, so you already know when you're going to have that negative feelings. Like, say I'm watching, anytime a show comes on about kids that were murdered or kids that died or something, I'm already going to know that I'm going to need to think something else sometimes if it becomes too difficult. So you replace the thought and you self-talk to yourself. Self-talk often appears in telegraphic form. Like I was saying, one short word or image contains a whole series of thoughts, like a movie. Like if I'm watching a movie, and memories and or association. Like I say, you can be watching anything and a child comes on, then you're going to feel your heart starting to beat faster, and you say to yourself, oh no, what impact is this going to have on me? Oh no, what am I going to do? The fears start coming in, and your panic and the memories of the previous attacks and the thoughts how to escape the current situation. Identifying self-talk may require unraveling several distinct thoughts from a single word or image. Like the first exercise I had with you guys, I taught you how what the irrational thinking is. Irrational thinking, what when you're thinking irrationally, you're gonna write it down, and you're gonna write the pros and the cons. If you're thinking something's going on, you're gonna write down, and then you're gonna separate it from fact, the what ifs, and what's the worst that can happen, and just being able to identify the reaction or the type of thinking that you're having will set you apart from being a deranged, or whatever you want to call it, being not at peace with yourself. Anxious self-talk is typically irrational, but almost always sounds like the truth. What if thinking may lead you to expect the worst possible. Remember I was telling the worst possible outcome if given the situation? One is that highly unlikely to occur. That was the last thing. What is and what's the worst that can happen? Yes, because of the association takes place so quickly, it goes unchallenged and unquestioned. So because you already thought that you saw a dead cat on the road and it's already dead, so you want to do something about it. So is it best to you validate the belief that are you going to be always scared to cross the road because you associate that road with death, so you're going to stop crossing that road. So the worst that can happen is that you're going to be the dead cat on the road. Or if you don't ever cross the road, then you will I'll never get to the beach because I'm be too afraid to even try to get across the street. So just thinking the negative self-talks and being anxious all about it, when you got to write down the truth about it. So an anxious self-talk is typically irrational thought, and that's what I was talking about always it sounds like the what ifs, and I'm going to be scared to cross the road because I might get killed by that cat. It's unchallenged and unquestioned, and it's hard to evaluate the validity of the belief of scared, unaware. You just accept it as it is. So accepting it as it is the dead cat on the road. He's already dead. So you don't even challenge the thought that how did the cat it's like how did the chicken cross the road? Well, the cat is an animal, and that, see, here's where I challenge it. The cat is an animal, therefore his brain is not looking both ways, that we have the brain that is larger than a cat to distinguish if a car is coming. They may be faster, but we're smarter. So there's where you challenge the thought of the negative self-talk. Self-talk, what I was talking about, the avoidance, because I saw the dead cat. You tell yourself that the situation such as the freeway is dangerous, and so you avoid it. By continuing to avoid it, you reinforce the thought that it's dangerous. Like I was saying, you may even protect images and catastrophe around the prospect of confronting the situation. And in my case, like, I never went to the beach that much because I was afraid to cross the road, and I never crossed the road because I'm afraid I'm going to be that dead cat on the road. So I avoid going to the beach when it's just such a beautiful beach. That I live right across the street from the beach, and it is so beautiful, and it's the ocean and it's water, and it is so serene. It's just, and it's the negative self-talk that keeps me from going to the beach. So what you want to do is avoid thinking those thoughts, like the negative self-talk, the anxious self-talks. The anxious are the irrationals, the what-ifs. The self-talk is the other one. The first one is the one words that contain stuff like, oh no, that moment where you're thinking you saw your ex-husband and you're like, oh my God, I can't go to the wedding because the what if I hit him and I'm going to get and I'm going to ruin the whole wedding. And so therefore you're going to miss your child's wedding because you had that negative self-talk, and the outcome is a catastrophe, which you missed your child's wedding, and you can never retake that again. So therefore the worst that can happen, like I say, is you miss the wedding and you can never replace it, and it's gone, and you'll never experience that again. That's the worst. But it's not the end of the world, because you can always go to your next child's wedding, or you can see the pictures, you know. But don't avoid situations because you got the PTSD or whatever. Self-talk can initiate or aggravate a panic attack. The more you think about something, like a panic attack often starts out with symptoms of increasingly psychological arousal, such as more rapid heartbeat, tightness in the chest, sweaty palms. Biology, this is the body's natural response, and that's the fight or flight reflex, I think. The All mammals have that, you know, because you want to protect yourself. Yet the symptoms can remind you of previous panic attacks instead of simply allowing yourself to react to letting yourself to react to the peak of what it is that scares you. You can simply more intense panic attack, and it gives you your scary. You're giving yourself the scary talks, and that's when you lose control. I have to get out of here. Oh no. And you never do anything because you always don't want to ever face a situation. People who want to avoid going to the store or avoid meeting people or avoid the situations, you're going to be in that stagnant situation, and years will go by and you'll never meet anybody, and you're going to die alone, not knowing anybody, and it's going to be just horrible. No, just kidding. But I'm just putting that in there just so that you can get out there or whatever. But it's instead of simply allowing yourself to have that reaction with, you know, it's good to think other things. Don't say the what ifs, I lose control, or how am I going to get out of here, or whatever. You want to have a better self-talk to get you to go out there and to explore and make sure that you actually get something done, because in that situation you'll just become a hermit and never get nowhere. I haven't seen these exercises in so long that the pages are so old that I don't even know. Symptoms in which afflicts further scare you. A severe panic attack might happen if you absorb the rendered much less intense, that you make reassuring statements to yourself at the onset of the first symptoms. I can accept what's happening even though it's uncomfortable. I might let my body do its things. This will pass. Because this is what you're thinking to yourself. I've gotten through this before, and I will do this this time. That's like when you're crossing the road. I've crossed the road before. I've made it through, and nothing ever happens. And so I get to the beach. Negative talk is a series of bad habits. Always having that negative thought. I'm never going to get nowhere. I'm never going to lose weight. Those are all the negative thoughts. And just as you replace them with unhealthy behavior habits, such as smoking or drinking excess coffee, the more positive health promoting behavior, so you can replace it with healthy thinking instead of having the negative stuff. Because if you're going to have the negative thoughts, you're not going to change your thought process. That's what this whole thing's all about. And the types of negative self-talks, not all negative self-talk is the same. Human beings are not only diverse but complex with multifaceted personalities. These facts, sometimes referred to as super personalities, are differences. Super personalities each play their own distinct role and possess their own voices and complex working of consciousness, memory, and dreams. Below, and it'll tell you that the type of peoples there are, what kind of self-negative talk, and what kind of people there are. There is the worrier, the person that constantly worries all the time. See if you notice anybody or if you have these traits. I am the constant worrier. The critic, the one that's, oh my gosh, she never wears the right clothes. Oh, I can't believe she's being seen in that fat cow. It's always the critic. You know, always saying, oh my God, they're just so bad. The victim, oh my God, it's me. It's always all about me. I'm always playing the victim. And the perfectionist. My ex-husband or somebody in the military. I've noticed that a lot of people in the military, they do no wrong. They're always a perfectionist. That's just sickening. But okay. Since the strength of these inner voices varies for different people, we might find it useful to rank them from strongest to the weakest in yourself. So we all have that in us. We have the warrior, we are critics, and we play the victim, and the perfectionist. I remember in one exercise, and one of the classes that I took, that all we were doing is making charts and what we want to do. Where do we want to be 10 years from now or whatever? Well, I couldn't cut a perfect circle. That's a good group, by the way, a perfect circle. If you know Tool. Anyway, I couldn't cut that perfect circle, so I started to cry. So right there was my negative thinking. I can't do this. All of it flooded. I was like, oh shit, I can't do it right. I can't just, but I stopped myself. I stopped the panic attack. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just for my own personal use, and I can't be the perfectionist. So, I mean, move on, or you're going to spend your whole life in that same situation because it's not perfect. You can't be the perfect being, and nothing's perfect. So you're going to do, those are the characteristics of what I was talking about. Some of them. Okay, we have the warrior. Characteristics that usually is the strongest personality and some people who are prone to anxiety. The warrior creates anxiety by imaging the worst case scenario. It scares you with fantasies and disasters, catastrophes, and when you imagine confronting something with fear, it also aggravates your panic by reacting to the first physical symptom of a panic attack. The warrior promotes your fears that what is happening is dangerous or embarrassing. What if I have a heart attack? What will they think if they see me? You know, the what ifs. What ifs? You never, I mean, that's the bad to be the warrior because, in short, the warrior dominates tendencies include anticipating the worst, what's the worst, overestimating the odds of something bad or embarrassing happening, and creating grandiose images of potential failures and catastrophe. The warrior is always vigilant, watching the uneasy apprehension for any small symptom or signs of trouble. So the warrior is never going to get nowhere because they're always, oh my God, everything's always bad's going to be happening. And I already said the warrior is like the oh no's, the what ifs, and what if they see me doing this, and what if I get in a car accident and I'm not wearing any underwear, the what if, and so what? At least you're going to be saved. Your life is going to be, so what you want to do is when you're going to have one of these attacks, you're going to put the fact out there. And that's my first exercise in one of my other tapes is put the fact, write down the fact. Who's breaking in my life scenario? Who's breaking into my house is being broken into. Those are the facts. Thoughts. Oh my God, they're gonna break in here and kill me in the middle of the night. Those are my thoughts. So I gotta change them. I gotta change all my thoughts and action. Not just changing the thoughts, but actually doing something about it by changing the locks. And I've done all that. But and then feelings. I guess feeling is like writing the pros and the cons. I think I discussed that, writing the pros and the cons, the good shit and the bad shit and the feelings. And then action, like I said, do something about it. Don't just talk about it. So that's and I was talking about the characteristics. The critic. Okay, we're going to talk about what a critic is. A critic is a part of you that constantly is judging and evaluating your behavior and in sense may seem to apart from that of other personalities or the sub-personalities of myself, because I can be the critic of myself, and it promotes anxiety, not being able to handle my panic attacks. Let's see, not going places that I used to go to, and unable to perform at my best for not having the dependence of someone else, like always having a service dog because I'm afraid of doing something. And it tends to ignore your positive qualities and emphasis. But having my dog allows me to be brave because I have her to watch, and we help each other out. But it helps out, and it stops the negative thinking, and it helps with the weaknesses, and it just gets rid of my low self-esteem. Let's see, an example of that would be the following, would be typical of the critic self-talk. Let's see what they said. A critic relishes negatively, and I said, and you label things. You could have done better. The could-haves, the would-haves, the should-haves. Remember the critic? I'm weak. I should be strong. it's just the thinking, just thinking that you can't do something, is those are the things that are destroying you and causing much weakness in a person, and it doesn't help you. And the victim is going to promote depression, because you're always feeling like can't handle this, and I'm the big crybaby, and you got to put your big girl pants on. Your characteristics of the victim is part of that. You feel helpless or hopeless. It generates anxiety by telling you that you're not making any progress, and that your condition is incurable, or that the road is too long. Remember, we're talking about the road, and you step from you to have a real change of recovering. The victim also plays a major role in, like I was saying, it creates depression. The victim believes that there is something inherently wrong with them, and there's obstacles between you and your goals. Characteristics are, you complain and the regrets things. And also, I believe that nothing will ever change, because you're always like the victim. Favorite examples is I'll never be able to, or whatever. The victim will say things like, I'll never be able to do what I want, and point out that even trying is just like physically draining today. Why bother doing this? I mean, that's why I said in earlier, or one of my videos, that even though I got a clean house, I'm going to go ahead and dress nicely, do my hair, my makeup, and so that I can not prolong being a victim or have negative self-thoughts, and feel good about myself and do something. The perfectionist promotes chronic stress and burnout. A perfectionist will never feel like they amount to anything, because their characteristics are the critic. It is hard to be let down, or less to put you down, to push and good you to do better. It generates anxiety by constantly telling you that your efforts aren't good enough, and that you should be working harder, and you should always have everything under control. You should always be competent and should always pleasure. I mean, you can't be the perfect person, so you just cannot be the perfectionist, because you're gonna burn out yourself. You can't do everything. You can't help everybody. You're not the one holding the world. So it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to be human, because we are human. We are not computers or robots. We are human. So go ahead and be human, be normal, and we all make mistakes. We all gain weight, and we all are not perfect. Look for the thoughts that were going through your mind, and you feel that the way you did, I feel scared. It's a good example of your self-talk, that it doesn't indicate that you are telling yourself, that causes you to feel scared. On the other hand, the self-statement, what if I panic on the job today, is an example of a thought that could have led you to feel scared. So therefore, you're not going to go to that job or get that job interview or go, because you were having those self-talks and you've talked yourself into not going. So you're going to counteract the negative self-talk. The most effective way to deal with the self-talks of the warrior and those super personalities I was talking about are to counter them with positive statements that directly you can say rebuke or refute the invalid of your negative self-talk. If you're creating anxiety or other upsetting emotional states through negative mental programming, you can begin to change the way you feel by substituting positive programming. During this, we'll so like I was saying, when you're having bad things, the what is and all those things, you're going to replace it. Like I said, that chart, when you're having irrational thoughts and irrational thinking, you're going to write down the what. Okay, you're going to write down, what is the evidence of this? Like my house, for instance. What evidence have they broken? All the shit that they're leaving here. I showed a proof where it's not my handwriting, it's somebody else's handwriting that wrote on my box of Q-tips that said, get the fuck out. Excuse my language, but get out, more or less. Move. And it told me the zip code of where to move to. And I already told you where it was, but anyway. So what is evidence for this? I had lots of evidence, and I still got lots of evidence here, but that, write down what evidence do you have. Is this always true? Well, it's true because I know it's a fact, so I put a fact in there. But it's not always true, because if I put locks and I get cameras and all that, it'll stop it. Has this been true in the past? Yes, I know that in the neighborhood there's been other break-ins. So yes, it's been true, and I've had the break-in still has happened in the past. So, but it depends on what the situation is. But that's what you're gonna write down. You're gonna write down. When you're having your situation or whatever you're thinking, you're going to write, what evidence do I have? Is this always true? Has this always been true in the past? What are the odds of this happening or being true? So, what odds are there that this is really happening? Is it in my mind? No, I have physical evidence that it actually happened. It's not in my mind, because that's not my handwriting. My house was broken into by them putting things in the situation. I've taken pictures, but I'm like, why do I have all of this evidence if I don't go to the police right now? Because first off, when I went the first time, and that's the negative thinking, well, it didn't do nothing the first time, but if it gets worse, you know what I'll start doing now? I'm gonna start collecting evidence and saving it, and next time I will tell them, sit them down and say, you're going to listen to my whole story. Fact is, I gave my keys away. Fact is, they made copies of my keys. Fact is, I left my door slightly ajar. They pushed it open and stole my keys and made copies of that key. So different situations, different facts. That's the evidence that I have. It's not irrational thinking. That actually happened. So, has it been true in the past? Yes, it's happened to me before. What are the odds of this really happening? Well, it happened to me because certain individuals did not like me, and maybe I was a critic with them, and they didn't like that I told them that they were fat, or they were ugly, that they looked like old sea hags, and they should put sunblock on because they're going to look 100 years older than they are. You know, I told them stuff, and they told me stuff, so I'm just like, what's the worst that can happen is the other one. What is the worst that can happen? What is so bad about that? They might want to kill me. What would you do if the worst happened? Well, I've had them bitches scream in my face, excuse my language, but I've had them come to me and say, did you say this? Blah, 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 screaming in my face. Did you say this? Yes, I did. The worst that can happen is I can get my butt kicked. But if they touch me, if not the worst that can happen. Speaking like that, physical and assault is a lot worse. So the worst that can happen to them is I press charges and they get like a $10,000 fine for abusing a disabled person. So that's the worst that can happen to them. And for me, I live my life because I know that I'm not doing anything to anybody anymore. I haven't done anything to them ever, but freedom of speech, unfortunately, you can't think anything. If you even say something they don't like, they want to control you, but we're not going to be controlled, so we won't. So, says, what's the worst that can happen? I already said that. Are you looking at the whole picture? Are you looking at everything? Look at the whole picture of the whole story. Yes, I looked at the whole picture in my situation. The whole picture is they didn't want me in the neighborhood. They want me gone. That's the whole picture. So, are you being fully objective? Yes. If I'm being fully objective. So, but that is the whole things, and that should help you in your everyday daily lives. In that case, you want to do something about your negative self-talk. So it is important that you subject to irrational scrutiny. You can weaken and hold your negative self-statements by exposing them to any of the following, and that's the ones I told you. What evidence do you have? Is it always true? Has this happened before in the past, or whatever? You know, you can write the pros and cons, whatever. What are the odds that it's really happening, or is it true? Are you imagining it? Write down everything. What's the worst that can happen? That if you don't do it, if you don't ever go out, if you don't like crossing the street, crossing the road, okay? Remember, like with a dead cat, the evidence is there's a dead cat on the road. Is this always true? There's not a bunch of dead animals on the road. Has this happened before in the past? I don't see a bunch of dead animals on the road. What is the worst that could happen? Not ever getting across the street and not seeing a beautiful beach. And what would you do if the worst happened? If I got hit, or if somebody hit me, or there's things that you can do without getting hurt, but the worst that can happen is get help. Are you looking at the whole picture? Drive your car across the street. That's the whole picture. There's always we could say there's always something counteract. There's always something to do with your thinking. There's always a solution. So are you being fully objective? The objective, what's your objective? You know, getting to the beach. That's my objective. Going to the beach. And that is my lesson for today. And that should help you with some daily talks on post-traumatic or everyday thinking. And another one that I have is loose lips sink ships. That's the end quote for that. So thank you. All right, let's see if I can